All right, President Biden is delivering a major political speech Thursday night defending the soul of the nation from Republicans. But this is only the latest case of Democrats and the media targeting millions of voters with extremist rhetoric. Here, take a listen.
Mr. Chairman, you embrace the rhetoric semi-fascism to describe the Republican Party.
Well, it's not about the embracing. It's calling what it is what it is.
For the most extreme, saying semi-fascist leads me only to the question, what's semi about that? It's full-on fascism.
And it's really because he's tossing red meat to his Klan-like base that he needs so desperately.
They are attacking our democracy. They are taking away our freedom.
Joining me now is Mercedes Schlapp, CPAC Foundation Senior Fellow and former White House Strategic Communications Director, and Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor. So, Charlie, I'm going to come to you first. So is this rhetoric of attacking Republicans, whether it's the MAGA king, Donald Trump, or calling Republicans semi-fascists, is this going to work to actually bring more voters into the Democrat Party?
I have a hard time seeing that. You know, what the president seems to forget is that as much as he may hate these people that didn't vote for him and voted for Donald Trump, he still works for them. And for him to sit here and call them fascist and call them Nazis and to call them all these names doesn't do anything to help his position. And of course, to hear other Democrats repeat the line, it's kind of comical almost if it wasn't so disgusting, because the Democrats sort of put themselves out as being this party of tolerance or something like that. But here's the real thing, Sean, that what I think all of this tells us. Democrats are out of ideas, and all of the ideas they have tried are terrible, and people are catching on to it, and Democrats realize it, and Joe Biden realizes that they are willing to talk about fascists, Nazis, the raid in Mar-a-Lago. They want to talk about anything except their record of absolute total failure. They control every avenue of power in Washington, and every avenue of Washington has been used to make people's lives more miserable, and Democrats are terrified of talking about any of that.
You know, you mentioned the myth of liberal tolerance. It doesn't exist, Charlie. It's a myth. It always has been. But Mercedes, what gets me is you got to have credibility. If you're going to make an argument to say these guys are really bad, they're fascists, you have to have credibility with voters that you're telling them the truth. And Joe Biden, who sits at 40% in poll numbers, and you know the Hispanic numbers, he's down at the low 20s of approval. How does he have any credibility to say these are the bad guys and it's not my policies that you should be focused on?
Well, there's definitely been a shift, Sean, in the White House where they're going hardcore and really politicizing the White House to basically say we're going to go after our enemies. And they've made it very clear. They moved from identity politics to now what we call name-calling politics because of the mere fact that they have to create that enemy. And who are they going to make the enemy? Donald Trump and his supporters. They're going to call them ultra MAGA. Well, let me tell you something. For those MAGA Republicans, that's like a badge of honor. They love that. They'll make T-shirts and hats around it. But I will say something. It is disturbing. It is outrageous that they would basically attack half of Americans in this country. To remember that 80 million voters supported Donald Trump in 2020, that so many people wanted to find a way to say, all right, you know, things are bad right now and we need solutions to our problems. And what do we get? A Biden administration more focused on calling us names and pretty much trying to isolate these voters. I just think it's a very poor political strategy, and it's going to backfire on these Democrats.
You know, it's a horrible political strategy. And again, you have Joe Biden, who's out of touch. Then you have these left-wing news organizations who are in this liberal bubble in New York or, you know, in California that don't understand where real Americans are at because they don't get out of that bubble and they think everyone thinks like them in New York City or in L.A. But that's not where the average man and woman in America is. But before we go, I want to get you guys' take on the White House denying that people are walking freely across the southern border. Take a listen to this exchange.
Somebody unvaccinated comes over on a plane. You say that's not okay. Somebody walks into Texas or Arizona unvaccinated. They're allowed to stay. Why?
But that's not how it works. But that's not. It's not like somebody walks over and that's not how.
Exactly what's happening.
Well,
Thousands of people are walking in a day. Some of them turn themselves over. Some of them are caught. Tens of thousands a week are not. That is what is happening.
So, Charlie, we have one of two options here. Either one, she's lying, or two, she actually doesn't know that people are walking across the southern border, 10,000 plus a day. Which one's worse, lying or just not knowing?
I don't know which is worse, but if these folks in the White House cared about her, they would stop sending her out there to say things like that, because obviously we know that the whole administration is idiotic and dishonest and doesn't know what they're talking about. But it really does all fall on her, and she looks ridiculous, and it's kind of sad. Obviously, she could walk away if she had the integrity to do that, and she doesn't. But she really does look stupid and sound stupid when she stands there and says things like that.
Now, Mercedes, take me down memory lane. If you or anyone else from the comms department in the Trump White House had said anything like this, what would have the response been from the media? Right?
Oh, I got to tell you, Sean, they would have been fried. I mean, they couldn't win the media narrative on what her response is. But let's remember, she doesn't have a good answer. Obviously, Karine really attempted to figure out a way to get out of answering that question. But there is no good answer because of the failure of the Biden open border policy that he's pushing forward. And quite frankly, they are allowing hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants to come through the border, where the drug cartels and the human traffickers are the ones dominating and bringing drugs through the border. So I got to tell you something. I think, Peter Doocy, that was actually a pretty, easy question for her to answer, and she could barely put a sentence together.
I look at the politics of the border, and, Donald Trump ran on this in 2016. And frankly, on a personal level, I didn't think that was going to work. I thought that Donald Trump was going to alienate the Hispanic voter. But you look right now, and Charlie, you see Hispanic voters across the country going, listen, I want security, I want safety, and you're flooding my hospitals, my schools. We have more crime. This policy doesn't work for us at a basic level, which is why I think people are leaving him. If it worked in 2016, no doubt, whether it's Donald Trump or any other candidate, they're going to run on the border, and I think it's going to be a bigger issue than 16.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And set aside for a minute Hispanic American voters, and think about if, let's say, all you cared about were the migrants coming across the border. If you care about them, you don't invite them to take this journey and be held by coyotes and human smugglers and raped and murdered. People are dying at the border. Joe Biden's policies are killing these very migrants that Democrats claim to care about. They don't care about. AOC doesn't care about them. If AOC cared about these migrants, they would put a wall up and stop the flow and end the slave trade of human smugglers bringing these people across the border and having them get raped and murdered along the way.
And they don't care about the moms and dads who lost a son or a daughter to fentanyl that comes across the southern border, subsidized by China, enriching the cartels. Mercedes Schlapp and Charlie Hurt with a beautiful beard. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it.
I know. It was quite a distraction, Sean.
It is quite a distraction. Looks good, Charlie. Keep it up.